No, I don't.
Yeah, can you tilt that down? Does it not go down? Where your right hand is, to go down a
No,
little?
it's the best way to do it is just to hold it.
Anybody know how to work like this?
Yeah.
The best way to do it is
The
just
best
to
for
hold it.
him is to hold it and make an effort that we can understand. Or we are going to
Yeah,
go.
it sounds really good to me too, so it might be.
Was there a question or where were we?
No, you're about to do a reading.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for showing up, everybody. I'm going to read from the beginning of chapter 1, which is the start of the story. You got the better mic. That's the problem.
I'm staying on the mic.
Yeah.
There we go.
They won't back. The mic is your friend.
So I found myself somewhat dazed in the back of a cab on my way from SFO to a theater unfamiliar to me in downtown San Francisco called the Warfield. Dazed because when I woke up that morning in Brooklyn, whatever plans I had were tossed aside, and instead I was put on a plane to SF because I was sick with some kind of cold or something and in denial about it, and also jet lagged. And to be truthful, I was pretty frightened about whatever situation I was now agreeing to put myself in. It was September 25th, 1980, and I was 29. The driver took me to the backstage door of the Warfield and helped me with my carry-on bag and an attaché case, a thing that replaced the briefcase in those days. I glanced around at the peculiar scene. It was twilight, excitement in the clean, fresh SF air as showtime was approaching. There were a dozen or so wild-looking young men and women happily twitching and gyrating to music from a boombox, possibly due to the substances in their bloodstreams. Before I realized in my addled state what was happening, a scraggly bearded guy got in my face, grinning maniacally. "Hey, you got any extra passes?" I just looked at him dumbfounded. The crowd had immediately sized me up as a likely guestless person. Other greeters moved toward me, talking, gesticulating. The cab driver nudged me, put my bags down, offered a receipt. I came back to reality, paid him. He shook his head and gave me a look of pity as he turned to go. I had a half-formed feeling of, wait a second, as I watched him retreat, but it was too late. He was gone. I summoned an ounce of courage, turned to face the grim metal door, the backstage entrance to a Grateful Dead show, the hugely hyped first show of an historic 2-week run in their hometown. I ignored the shouts coming from the gatekeepers and knocked on the door. Nothing. The people around me laughed and clapped. They weren't threatening really, but in my bewildered state, I felt a wave of panic, and I pounded on the door hard, thinking, what the fuck am I gonna do if this door never opens? The cab is gone, I've got luggage, Jesus fucking Christ. I suppress the panic, I have no choice but to pound on this door until it opens. Then suddenly the door swings open and there is a bearded, long-haired guy in a cowboy hat lunging out, looking around angrily, brandishing a long black metal flashlight in one hand like, who the fuck is pounding on this door? I try to look non-threatening, shrinking back, luggage by my side. Not sharp enough really mentally to realize the crazy fans were probably pounding on this door every few minutes. I shouted at the guy, Sue Stevens said I should ask for Steve Parrish. Sue is Garcia's personal manager, and Steve is the stage crew member in charge of all things Garcia. The guy looks me up and down, moves back, slams the door behind him. The little crowd resumes their jeering and merriment at my expense. A long minute passes, then the door swings open again, and there is big Steve Parrish himself. Tall and large, black mustache and intense gaze. The crowd recognizes him immediately and shrinks back in awe and respect, falling into a murmuring silence. I'm like, okay. It was kind of like a PBS nature documentary where you see firsthand how a specific tribal society works. In this case, the interface between the adoring, ecstatic fans and the living person, Big Steve, who symbolizes the object of their adoration, Grateful Dead. He suddenly appears and they shrink back in humility and quiet excitement, like plants that close their leaves in the presence of direct sunlight. To my great relief, Steve waves me inside and orders someone to grab my bags and then leads the way into the backstage area of the wharf. I'm concerned about my bags and the seedy-looking guy who is taking possession of them, but Steve just keeps moving, and I'll be damned, but I do end up in a nice hotel room at the end of the night with my bags. Grateful Dead may look like an out-of-control circus, but it isn't. Backstage is a warren of corridors and spaces and rooms filled with cigarette and marijuana smoke. Happy people going in both directions in the narrow corridors. Lots of chatter and laughter, people in weird outfits, a guy in a full clown suit with a red nose, kids of all ages laughing and running, and you could hear the excited hum of the full house of fans upstairs, invisible from here, but waiting to explode very soon when the band came out. I just followed Steve. We arrive at a door. Steve turns to me and indicates, okay, you wait here. He pushes open the door and a huge cloud of pot smoke comes pouring out of the room. An overwhelming blast, right out of a Cheech and Chong movie. I have plenty of experience with smoking pot by this time in my life, but in this moment I'm a bit staggered. I'm backstage at a Dead concert, about to have a meeting with Jerry Garcia, which I know is actually an audition for the job of directing the band's first live mass media event, using untested technology to reach their fans all across America, something that had never been done before, and deliver a top-quality audiovisual experience. What could go wrong? I stumble into the room so thick with smoke you can't see across it, and I hear a voice to my left. It's Garcia welcoming me. Hey, man! I look at him seated, looking up at me, and handing me the largest joint I've ever seen. Here, have some of this. The burning joint in his fingers is inches from my face, framed entirely by his big, smiling face. Garcia is a big man with a big head and an unruly penumbra of thick black hair and a full salt and pepper beard, always wearing his signature aviator-style glasses. He has dark eyes and animated dancing eyebrows, a prominent nose, and big cheeks puffed out by a semi-permanent grin. While performing, his movements are smooth and relaxed, but offstage he seems to crackle with electricity. Confronted with the huge joint Garcia was offering me, I know immediately this is one of those what the fuck moments. I could say, oh, no thank you, I'm not feeling great, I probably shouldn't. Or I could just run out of the room and out into the night yelling, no, I didn't sign up for this, I'm just a tech-type nerd from New York, not some kind of swinging psychedelic adventurer. I look Garcia in the eye and take the joint from him and smile and thank him and take a big toke from it. Then I look around to my right in the haze and find someone to pass it to. There are no familiar faces, maybe 8 people sitting in chairs and sofa and up in road boxes. They note my arrival, but quickly go back to their chatter and laughter. Garcia waves me into the room. Come on in, sit down. I smile and nod and quickly realize there's nowhere to sit. Steve, still in the doorway, notices as well. And he suddenly barks at this big scowling Hells Angels guy sitting on the road box beside Garcia. Hey, Tiny, give him your seat. Holy shit, now I'm really alarmed. The Hells Angel turns his head to look at me, his scowl deepening, then slowly gets up, grumbling menacingly. Inside, I'm shouting, no, I don't need a seat. Don't do this to me, please. But I kept my cool, nodding politely to Tiny as Steve takes him outside and closes the door. As soon as I sit down, Garcia turns to me with that big, happy grin and makes a sweet greeting. Glad you could make it. Good to meet you. How was your flight? I'm relieved that he does in fact know who I am and that I'm here at his behest, and he seems like a really nice guy. The giant joint goes between us again, and the weed begins to hit me. My God, this is not like what we smoke in New York. I try to relax into the high. Garcia explains to me that tonight is the first night in a 15-show run at the Warfield, and that they are adding an acoustic set at the start of the show, which their fans are all worked up about. After the Warfield run, the Dead are booked to play some shows at the Sanger in New Orleans, and then move to Radio City in New York City, where they will do another 8-show residency. The last show will be on Halloween, and it will be televised via closed-circuit broadcast to 20 or more theaters across the U.S., something that has never been done before, and also simulcast across the nation on FM radio. He's articulate and speaks quickly as he briefs me while making sure I'm keeping up with him. Fans will buy tickets to see the band on a huge color screens in theaters equipped with state-of-the-art PA systems, good and loud. And I start to understand why I'm sitting here with him, because I'm someone who can help make this happen. I mentioned to Garcia that I recently filmed a live concert of the Meters and the Neville Brothers at the Sanger Theater in New Orleans. The Meters are well known for their improvisational playing, which can be difficult for film directors to capture, and which Grateful Dead are, of course, famous for. Lots and lots of improvisation. Garcia smiles and nods knowingly, as if he has seen some of the footage already, or maybe he's spoken to Art Neville about it, or maybe he's just signaling, yeah, you just filmed the Meters and the Nevilles, two of the greatest bands ever, and somehow you got that gig, and I heard it went well, and so that qualifies you to be sitting here. I'll never know. I am now firmly in the grip of the weed. It's like I'm watching a movie, a Fellini movie maybe, a movie that I'm also in. Bob Weir pops in suddenly, acoustic guitar slung around his neck, laughing. The sound from the venue above surging until he shuts the door. He strikes me as a very relaxed, outgoing guy, male model, good-looking, athletic, all in marked contrast to Garcia. He makes a reference to the impending disaster of the acoustic set. Garcia returns the jocular repartee, and it's clear that doing an acoustic set is Garcia's idea, and everyone else is just going along with it. Then Weir refers cryptically to the director auditions going on for the Halloween broadcast. Is this one of the guys, referring to me? We had not formally met. Garcia nods, and they have a good laugh, and then Weir exits, still laughing. Geez, what am I in for? Parrish ushers someone else out of the room, brings Tiny, the Hells Angels, back into the room, and gives him the seat. Tiny glares at me. Garcia seems to notice my, shall we say, slight discomfort. I'm so high, my head is spinning. But he presents that warm, reassuring smile, signaling that all will be okay. I had no idea then, but over the next 15 years, I grow accustomed to his ability to make others comfortable. Even in that moment, I could see he was a warm and gracious man. Something of a charm machine. There's more to the chapter where we stop.
That's a great. As you say, there's more. There's more to the chapter. There's more to the book, and
No, that's it, actually.
that's the whole book. That's it. You heard the book. Now you can read it. At what point in your relationship with the band and working with Jerry did you realize this is more than just a job? I'm friends with this guy, and what is it that you had in common with him that made it into a friendship?
Wow. You're hitting home runs. It was different from my relationships with other artists because, and there were hundreds, they all had management teams and various people to do various jobs who were not employed by the artist, typically the record label. The Dead had everything in-house, which is why the industry didn't know about their, what they call numbers. They sold their own tickets, they sold their own merch, they even had their own record label for a while. They had their own studio, and Garcia was in charge of all things visual. So that So working with the organization meant the 6 guys in the band. That was it. Producers and directors are freelance. They come from the outside, and they have contracts. So, and artists want to deal directly with these people because it's them that's being transmitted by the producer or director. And so he was in charge representing the band. And I was friends with all of them, but especially with him. And the bonding started with, like I said, when he decides he wants you to like him, it's pretty intense because he's very likable. And so right away we're talking about movies, and he knew every movie ever made, also every book ever written. But Abbott and Costello, you know, back in the 50s, those movies. Abbott and Costello, Meet Frankenstein was amongst our favorite.
What about Bride?
I think it was Abbott and Costello Meet the Monster Boris Karloff. Wasn't that the name of the movie?
No.
They repackaged it, or is that a different one?
He made that,
Yeah.
They keep it.
They did a series. They did Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. You know, once they start recognized a moneymaker. But also Laurel and Hardy, and the science fiction horror movies. He was a huge science fiction fan. He had the movie rights to Sirens of Titan. And when I found that out, I'm like, holy shit. It takes a bag of money to get the rights to a hit book, for one thing. And I was a huge fan of Vonnegut. And back in the 60s, Vonnegut was dismissed by the intelligentsia, the science fiction genre. It's kind of crap. And now he's understood as a towering figure. And George Saunders, who's my current favorite writer, worships Vonnegut.
And the music publishing company that
Ice Nine.
Ice Nine, of course, is from a Vonnegut.
That's right. When I found out they're publishing, they have their own publishing company inside the organization. They were the first people that ever did that. And they named it Ice Nine, and no one knows what that is if you haven't read Sirens of Titan. No, Cat's Cradle.
That's right, yeah. So movies, clearly, and visual arts, and I know you've worked with Jerry very closely on things like the So Far video, et cetera. He's very involved in that. Were there moments, and I think you talk about some of this in the book, where there was tension between your friendship and working for this guy, and maybe even being a little bit of concern about art? You know, would he see you as just a fanboy or hanger-on?
There was close to zero conflict. Just recently, this memory came into my head. There was a meeting going on that involved all the band and some of the road manager types, and he wanted me there a lot. I'm not sure why. I haven't figured that out yet. But people would bicker. They'd have conflicts, and they would need to be settled with the band. And two people were bickering about something, and he's always smoking. He's like, hey, excuse me, if you need somebody to blame, just blame me, okay? And people were like, yeah, blame me. I'm not kidding. Now we're moving on, you know. And then we moved on, and he said under his breath, I get along with everybody. I don't understand why other people don't. And that just popped into my head recently. I just remembered that. It was such an odd, but it was absolutely true. He got along with everybody. How? I don't know. Anyway, what was your question?
Well, you mentioned, so that's part of it, and you mentioned in the book a couple of moments where you were worried that something
Right.
you said that you might
By
take the wrong way.
the mid '80s, this is 4 or 5 years after Radio City, I was on retainer. So they had dibs, and I could do whatever I wanted professionally. And if they wanted me, they had to give me 2 weeks' notice, and I'd do it. And then I got a big payout for that, and it was great. And then I moved here, but throughout that career building, I learned that not to be a fanboy around the talent. Some of these people are incredibly gifted and also weird, and sometimes not nice, but they didn't get where they got without some kind of talent. You may not like their music, but you know, and they're often very intelligent. And they know what you're doing immediately if you start. You know, one thing you could never say is, I love your work. Please, spare me. And so I learned to avoid photo ops because I would see other people like promoters, you know, or something. You're walking, go see it. Stage door or something, the promoter, oh, can I get a picture with you? Sure. They act like it's okay, but it's a pain. Constantly. Restaurants. I mean, you're interrupted. Oh, can I get a picture with you? It's probably worse today. iPhones.
But they don't ask anymore.
Well, and so I never did. And they notice. I don't pry. We're here to work. If you want to talk about family, I can do that, but I'm pretty focused, and they appreciate it, and he appreciates it. So I don't have any pictures together except this one. Well, a couple. I have production stills because you have a photographer on the set. But yeah, that was part of the technique of working together, but very little conflict. One time in the studio, actually working at So Far, it was a very high concept piece. It was his concept. He was a filmmaker at heart. He could have done anything. He was that he was a what do you call it? Not multi-pad.
Polymath.
Polymath, thank you. He wanted to make a film where we did the soundtrack first, which is how animated films are made, and then the cartoon characters are sunk to the soundtrack, the dialogue, and then we would start by recording a whole bunch of stuff by the band music on a soundstage with no audience, something they had never done, and then select and edit the soundtrack, and then add pictures and what we call cutaway visuals. This was during the early period of music videos, and most music videos were pictures of the artist doing the song, basically. And he said, and we'll film us recording the soundtrack as well, all at top quality. And, you know, I'm racking this up. This cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and that was over at the Marin Civic Center.
Right.
Yes.
And
Local angles.
right, and this was self-financed. See, I'd come to them with a concept that I would raise the money, produce it. They'd get $1 million up front for doing nothing except what they were doing anyway, a show. They'd own the copyright, the masters. They'd have final cut. There's no better deal. That's the best deal there is. And of course, Garcia was like, what if we produced it ourselves, and when we were happy with it, then we would sell it?
I just get fear of saying that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm thinking fast, like, yeah, well, that's way good for me, because I'm going to get the same money no matter what. And I'm just in control. So that's how they did it. So far it was self-financed, and of course he was in a coma in the middle of it.
Well, so let's talk about, the coma there were different health issues, but also, I think it's in the book, but you and I talked about how when you were, I think, down in LA doing some of the production and editing on it,
Adding
and
the
Jerry
visuals.
would, right, adding the visuals, and you told me about how when he wanted to go do drugs, and tell me a little bit about that.
In LA?
I think, well, maybe not in LA, but you did tell a story when we were talking about how you kind of kept him on track.
Oh, that was before that.
Okay.
Yeah, throughout most of the 80s, he was relatively sober. But I had a technique in, like, earlier at age 2 or 3 or something. because he did whatever he was doing openly in front of me, because when he did it, I said, what is that? Others didn't do that. I wanted to know. Like, if you collapse, who do I call, you know? And, but it's described in great detail in the book. But right on, he said, would you like some of this? And I knew what it was, and I'm like, I backed away physically, like, absolutely not.
Not like that first joint in the Warfield.
No, this was much more intense than that. So he knew that I wasn't there to share the drugs, which some people were, because they were very expensive. So, but he'd get the pipe ready to go, and then I'd ask a question. And then the pipe would go down. And we would talk, and then there'd be a pause, and the pipe would go back up, and then I'd ask a question. And then so I concluded that this guy is just bored. And as long as there's something stimulating going on,
Wow.
that's what he needs. And so we go for hours without him ever actually hitting the thing. But the question before you had about conflict. So we were in LA, and by this time we were very well-oiled, making jokes and having a good time while working. Because the chief job working with the dead is fun. And the first time I heard that, I went, come on, you know, we're serious. You know, fun. Okay, that's rule number one. I don't want, you know, okay, I get it. We're serious about fun. Okay. And that, I think, was the DNA from the pranksters and the acid tests and the whole psychedelic origins, that whole thing. And so we're down in LA, and you were with the highest paid technical people in the world with the best production stuff, just awesome toys. And the first time they see him come in, they're not aware that the talent is going to be there. That never happens. So they're like, oh, geez. Okay. And you could smoke in studios back then, a cigarette. And but they had no idea how we related to each other. They knew I was the producer director, but they also knew who the big boy was. He was my client. You know. So, you know, I can disagree with him, and I win because of the contract. But that would be stupid to go against the client's wishes. So anyway, we have a problem. A piece of music is too long. We've got to do something. Cut something somewhere. And I said, we could cut 8 bars out of your solo. A little bit of provocation. And he goes, yeah, or I could rip your head off and use it as a soccer ball. And the technicians were like, oh my God. Everybody has chairs with wheels, and they all rolled. And then we started laughing. There was a good beat, the whole beat. Then we laughed.
Yeah.
So that's about as close as we got to. Because, you know, he was always right, too. There's that. You know, he knew the music. And this thing, that project so far was his design. And it won the best video award for that year, and it was the best-selling video. After that, they wanted special effects, which we did insofar, to be married into the live experience. Because after that, they moved to stadiums, and you had to have these screens. And believe it or not, in the early years, I got shit from people like, "This is music. Why do we need video?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't know if you've been up to the top of the stadium." You literally can't see anything. It's a half a mile away. But I would just say, talk to them. You think I'm making them do this or something?
I remember when you and I first talked, and I was thinking about how there were many shows where I didn't even watch the band. I was out in the hallways, didn't go look at them one time.
They're not very visually.
They're not, and especially unless you're really up close and you're a tech nerd and you want to watch what pedals they're hitting. But I also remember thinking, you know, if you are in the boondocks, it's kind of neat that you can see it. And if there's 60,000 people in the stadium and 10,000 of them want to watch the screen, well, that's a lot of people that you're making happy with that.
And they led the way. They led the industry in audio for arenas and stadiums. So if you were up in the nosebleeds, as we call you were hearing great sound already, and they just wanted to add pictures to that.
Sure.
And they did, at the highest production level. The first time they said to me, we want you to do, you know, stadium reinforcement. Bring us a budget at the next meeting, 10 shows, blah, blah, blah. And I have a crew that I use regularly for, you know, booms and cranes and cameras and stuff. And we always work together, you know, and what's special about us was we could shoot live music without a script because we'd learned to do that at the Capitol Theater.
And that might come in handy at a Grateful Dead.
Well, they have a repertoire of 120 songs, and they don't know what they're going to play next, so they can't give you a script. And if you ask, you're already a jerk. So, anyway, and so I made a presentation. This was going to cost. Is this the highest possible quality of everything? And I was like, no, it's video reinforcement. Why would you want, you know, the highest quality would be a multiple. And Jerry's like, yeah. No, we always want the best. Like, just, sorry, I forgot to tell you that or whatever. And I felt in my mind like, why? What should I learn more about this? But a little voice said, no. It's a very clear directive. Do that. So that's what we did. So the stuff in the vault is broadcast quality, though it didn't need to be for the screens. Why did it need to be? Because he knew that it was all going to be released probably after he was gone. He knew he had heart disease, and I don't know if he knew how long he had, but we put 50 or 60 shows in there, and 20 or 30 of them have been released, and that's why they spent the money.
Thank you.
So one of the other things that you were involved in, there was the live music production, and also in 1987, when Touch of Grey came out, their only top 10 album actually.
In the Dark.
Or In the Dark, I'm sorry, Touch of Grey is, of course, the hit song. It was their only top 10 album, and because what everybody did at the time is you made music videos, and they brought you in to do a couple videos, and I would love to hear you talk about the one you filmed in San Rafael, the Hell in a Bucket video, and I'd love to hear how that started with the concept and the
You want to
conversation
hear
with the
about the
band.
duck.
I definitely want to hear about the duck. It is one of my favorite parts of the book.
Well, if you want to see the video, you can get it at my website, lendelamico.com, or it'll just take you to YouTube. You can go there, it's, official Hell in a Bucket video, Grateful Dead. And you'll notice that if you pay attention, the duck is in about half the shots.
You can't miss the duck.
Well, he's in the background sometimes. And I was working somewhere, and they said, Sue calls, as always, hey, can you drop what you're doing and come to Boulder tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah. And what are we doing? She's talking about a music video. I go, great. And instead of getting a conference room, I just said, I got 6 guys, so just come to my room. And we sat on radiators in the bed, and of course the joint went around. Those guys. And, you know, a lot of people in my position who would do music videos would come with a prepackaged idea that they had, because the label had typically chosen them and hired them. And then they said to the label, well, what are we thinking about here? And they would produce, the director would come up with a script. So then you go in and convince the chief director, whoever it is, that dates me, doesn't it? You convince Taylor to do it, whatever. But my thing was to ask the artists who wrote the song what their feelings were and start from there, which was a perfect fit for this band. And there was a big silence. I'm like, uh-oh. And then I turned to Weird, and I said, well, it's your song. I'm sure you have had some thoughts. And he was like, yeah. Big pause. He goes, a
Yeah.
duck. Okay. I had a yellow notepad, little notes. I still have it. Duck. The first word. Yes. Everybody burst out laughing. Okay, you got that. Well, turns out he had a whole. The whole thing is his idea. He was going to be. What's his name? Johnson in Miami Vice. What was the actor's name?
Don.
Don Johnson, Dakota Johnson's father, who was a songwriter, by the way. And Miami Vice was, for those of you on the younger side, was a hit show in the 80s, which personified the 80s completely. These two cops, one black and one white, dressed to the nines with gold chains and crap, were out fighting crime, which was always big drug dealers or something, boats, and rock music. So Bobby said, I want to be Don Johnson. And boy, is he. If you don't see the show, it doesn't register.
So
but I
true.
mean, they wear pastel colors.
Shirt unbuttoned,
Yeah.
gold chains.
And Bob, good looking guy, you know, he was, and he knew Don Johnson. But, I'm like, okay, oh, I see, it's an 80s, and he said, yeah, we're gonna do a social critique of the 80s. This is 87, and sounds good. And on and on. We're gonna have all these wild animals, and there's gonna be a dominatrix character in the song. And we're gonna get a 63, no, he said we're gonna get a convertible, and I'm gonna be in the back with the dominatrix, we're gonna be drinking. And then Billy and Bobby said, well, we'll be devils, and we'll be in the front. These guys are incredible.
Billy and Mickey, I think.
What did I say?
You said Billy and Bob.
No, Billy
Billy
and
and
Mickey.
Mickey, right? Yeah.
Two drummers. They fought over who would be driving. But these guys were so multifaceted and creative and game to do anything. I mean, we did New Year's shows where we had to film comedy scenes to fill their set breaks because the people out watching on TV, there was nothing, so we made stuff. And they would dress up like, you know, Garcia played Santa Claus, Mickey played Spock. And they killed. They were perfect. When Jerry did something called he wore an apron with the Straight Arrow cooking show. That was what it was. Hi kids, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do drugs or alcohol to have fun on New Year's. That was the right.
But it works for me. Right. Exactly. Works for me. So, I do encourage you to read more about the duck and the other animals in that video. We're going to leave that part there. I want to give you a chance to
You
tell
sure
us
you don't want to hear
about.
more about the duck?
You know, I think given
All right.
that we've got a limited amount of time and you've got so much to talk about, I do want to give you a chance to tell me about Welcome to Dopland, the movie that you filmed at least partly in Fairfax and Marin, and talk a little bit about that. What brought you to making that?
Yeah, it's called Welcome to Dopeland. If you're searching for it, it's the movie. It's streaming now, and you can get a free copy from me. It's a DVD if you have such a thing, or you have a player. What are they called? Xboxes or the other one, PlayStation. It was shot entirely in Marin, but mostly in Fairfax. And it's a dark comedy. You're not allowed to say black comedy anymore because people say it's got black people in it. No. It's a dark comedy, and I think it's still relevant today. It's I have a science fiction stand-in for artificial intelligence and other world-threatening technologies, and it takes place in one day, which is one of my favorite kind of movies. Yeah, if you have something you want to say about it, tell me about it on my website.
And you get to see a little bit of Fairfax in it, and maybe even people you know on the street. Who knows?
Oh yeah, Perry's is in it.
Right.
A lot. The Dead played here actually in this room, but we didn't. And wound up shooting in here. And recently I started working on another idea, so you never know.
You never know.
No.
Look forward to your other ideas.
Yeah.
So, one of my, another thing I really.
Oh, excuse me one second.
Please, yeah.
The name of the movie on the DVD is Everything Must Go. But when we got a distributor, we had to change it to Welcome to Dopeland. So those two movies are the same.
Don't be confused. Towards the end of Jerry's life, and you were still very good friends with him, and it was something fascinating to me to read about Garcia's, and I'll let you tell us what that is in a moment, but so many of us here, I'm sure, spent a lot of our time at Phil Lesch's place, Terrapin Crossroads.
Or Bobby's.
Which, and Bobby, of course, was involved with the Sweetwater for some time. And Terrapin Crossroads in particular had a real cachet, and Garcia's was going to be something different, but I think there was a similar vibe and a different vibe at the same time. Tell us about Jerry's concept for that.
Oh, in '94, my ex-wife's father, William Laura, Bill Kimpton, who invented the boutique hotel, was basically bored and looking for something to do, and he asked Laura if she would ask me if I would ask Jerry if he would take a meeting with Bill Kimpton. And so I did. And he was skeptical. He quote, "I'm afraid of rich people." And I said to myself, "You're rich yourself." And I said, "I know this guy. He couldn't be friendlier, and he's very charming. He's just a guy. He wants to do something." And his question was, "What do you want to do, Jerry?" It's a perfect opening, you know. And so we scheduled a meeting with Sue, his manager, and the two of them. And then Laura says, we're living together, of course. This was before Kylie, our daughter. And she says, "Can I come to the meeting?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I hadn't thought about that." And I said, "Well, it's a business meeting. It might be hard to explain why I bring my wife." And that was a stupid thing to do. But she took it very well. So then I confirmed the meeting with Garcia, and he says, "Can Laura come?" Because they liked each other. And I said, "Sure." Now this is how naive I am sometimes. I should have gone back to Laura and said, "I changed my mind and I want you." But I didn't, I just told the truth.
Jerry changed your mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was great. And there was a very Irish vibe. Bill and Jerry are both Irish, or half.